And Clodagh, such a pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Very good to be meeting you as well. You're absolutely fantastic in this. Just looking a bit into you, I can see that you're really passionate about music, in particular one of your many hobbies. Just so curious to know, have you made any music inspired by this movie, and what were you listening to when you were on set?
Oh, that's such a great question. I mean, it was a long time ago when I made this movie,
Okay.
and what I tend to do is shift gears when I'm playing a character. So if it's incongruous to my work, I shut out a lot of contemporary music. So I'm sure I was doing that on this.
Some 1940s.
Yeah, I
maybe,
did listen
yeah.
to. I mean, I know probably listened to a lot of Al Bowley or things of that era, kind of sweetness and a formality and a kind of gentleness of another time. And definitely, there's really beautiful Hungarian folk music that my mother cherishes, that reminds her of her parents and of that other time, and I've listened to some of that. I've also spent a lot of time listening to the dialect of people from that era. So I didn't really have much time to listen to music. I was spending a lot of my energy absorbing the distinct qualities in the dialect, and it's a very specific accent.
I would for sure listen to a playlist that you would make of all that Hungarian folk
It would be
music.
great. It is lovely music.
It's so touching how close this is to you personally, and your mother being a Hungarian immigrant to America. Has making this movie kind of made you look at her story any differently? Is there anything you might have learned about her? Or
It's made it even more intimate to me. Just this morning, my mother wrote me a lovely letter about remembering my grandmother's sacrifices. I often speak about my grandfather and how these similarities of what I was yearning to honor him, of what I recalled. But my grandmother spoke 5 or 6 languages, and because she was able to decipher all the myriad paperwork and complications of their passage through Vienna, being refugees, and ultimately gaining permission to come to the United States, that was because of her ability to read in English and to get work and support them. There's a lot of loss and hardship, but a lot of hopefulness, and it's led to quite a beautiful life. My mother is a very esteemed photographer and very well respected by many, and has been a guiding light in my career. But it's only brought me closer to my parents, both my parents. They're very moved by
she's
this.
so proud.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for speaking with me, and best of luck. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me. I'm Clodagh. Huge congratulations on this film.
Oh, thank
Your character
you.
had me crying and smiling, and she was just amazing. How was it particularly getting into the accent for you? What was kind of the references there?
Well, it was a huge challenge.
Yeah.
It was a little bit intimidating at first, suddenly reading, oh my gosh, I've got to learn Hungarian and I've got to speak in a Hungarian accent. So I just quickly got to my desk and got practicing. And
Duolingo, was it?
Yeah, exactly. Listening to anything I could. I had a great reference, actually, of a Hungarian woman who had a similar experience to Erzsébet. And so I listened to that endlessly on my earphones, and I was on this film actually 2 years before we actually shot, so I had lots of time to kind of mentally prepare myself.
Was there any kind of like phrase that got you into the accent or the language?
Well, kusunum is thank you, and that was
oh,
always
that's a lovely
kusunum.
one.
Yeah. So it's always a useful one to have as well.
Yeah, exactly, for visiting. You're also in a wheelchair for most of this. How
Yes.
was that, kind of practicing in the chair and everything?
Well, Erzsébet is suffering from malnutrition from the war, so when we meet her, she is very physically weak, and we see throughout the second half her health actually improving. But it was actually, again, it was fascinating to understand how to show that, how to convey that on screen, how to show that progression. A lot of my preparation was in understanding her movements and then gradually shifting those movements depending on how her health was doing.
I've been told to wrap up, but congratulations on the BAFTA as well.
Thank you very
and best of
much.
luck.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah,
It was
well,
good news.